Does it seem like it's been 50 years?
Are you kidding? Seems like it's been 5 days. Yeah, 50 years. It was unbelievable when CBS called and said, 50th anniversary, we want to do something. And I said, man, am I getting old?
No, you're not. Fine, like a fine wine, Brent, like a fine wine. What did you think about this kind of show and the way that CBS wanted to go about it?
Well, first, when Bob Wessler called, I loved the opportunity. So Bob's idea was to move the entire pregame, halftime, postgame into the CBS studios in New York. That was his idea. So he said to me, do you think we can do all of that live? And I said, well, I don't think why not. I mean, really, why couldn't you do it live?
Right.
You had great studio in New York. And then he mentioned to me Irv Cross, and I certainly was delighted by that because I had gone to Northwestern with Irv, and I actually had met him, terrific athlete, played for Air Parsegan before Notre Dame came and stole our coach, Dana, because he always beat the Irish. Anyway, so that was great. And then along about July, he called and asked me if I knew a Miss America by the name of Phyllis George. And I was honest, I said, I don't. Bob, I really don't follow the Miss America pageant. We both laughed.
Right.
And he said, well, I think she can add something to the broadcast. Now, my opportunity, I was not going to say, no way. Anyway, I welcomed her. What's interesting about Phyllis, when she first walked in, Irv and I were already sitting there, and we have a couple of rehearsals with her. And the room just kind of brightened. She's one of those persons who had this ability that everybody, oh, wow, there's Phyllis, and they were happy to see her.
Yeah.
She had this great smile, sat right down, and we went from there. I mean, there wasn't an uneasy moment at all amongst the three of us.
Yeah.
And that was the first year, that was the broadcast.
You can't create chemistry. It just
No,
happens, and that's a lucky thing in that
It is
moment.
lucky. That is lucky.
You and I first met when I was working just in the world of sports, and at
Sure.
that time, it was about what you knew about sports as a woman. You knew your sports, and Phyllis was coming in truly as a beauty queen,
Exactly.
not because she had sports knowledge. What did you know about the thought of having a woman in that position?
You know, what I knew about television is that the audience has to be comfortable with you in their living room.
Yeah.
Okay. And I thought, man, if you can't be comfortable with Phyllis George, there's a problem with you.
Right.
Okay, not with Phyllis. And also, what we did right away was to get her out with the athletes and have her interview them. And we had producers with her who obviously gave her good questions to ask the Roger Staubachs of the
Right.
world, and et cetera, and so forth.
Helped her with
And
that
very
research
personable. Yeah.
and the piece that she may not have known.
Exactly. The other thing that's good, Dana, she didn't pretend. You know, she handled herself just like what she was, a beauty queen who would go out and talk to players and would sit there and talk to Irv and me on the set, and so that worked.
But she also brought a different side of athletes out
Oh, for
because
sure.
of that. And
Exactly.
again, something I think we take for granted now, that we learn all these things about athletes, but what she was doing was something unique. What all of you were doing was something unique.
You know, we never put her on the sideline. You know, she was never live like what we see today. And the interviews were obviously edited and put together. But the athletes, and this was certainly true when Jane Kennedy replaced her for a time.
Yeah.
This was certainly true that the athletes enjoyed talking to Phyllis and Jane a lot more than they would have if Irv or Brent had come to interview them. Okay,
Right.
you could see that
Yeah.
in the way they opened up with them and the smiles and everything.
Yeah. Jimmy the Greek, can I go there right now? Because
Sure.
think about it now. Gambling is everywhere now.
Isn't that something? What's
Go
changed?
back in time. So Jimmy the Greek is brought in, but you guys can't talk point spreads?
No.
You
We
can't. How did this work? Potentially.
Well, the July again, Bob Wessler called and said, Brent, do you know a gambler by the name of Jimmy the Greek? And I laughed and I said, yes, I do. The Greek was an outstanding PR man, I'm going to tell you, amongst other things. So I said, yes. He said, I'm going to add him to the show this year. I'm going to bring him in for the NFL Today. I said, what does Commissioner Rozelle think about that? Oh, we'll have a meeting. Never mind, it's going to be fine. So I thought, well, Pete's approved this. We got up to go. And he said, gentlemen, I'd like to ask you a favor. Okay, now, when the commissioner says a favor, that's not a favor coming down the line. Okay, here comes the order.
You're doing it.
And he said, I would prefer that you don't use +7, -3, -10.5. And we all kind of nodded, oh, yes, sir, no problem. And then on the way back, we said, we got a big problem. But we devised the checkboard, okay? So people realized that if the Greek checked off everything on one team on one side, he was saying they were covering that day, you know. So we used it and got around it.
You also have a phrase that everybody knows you for and the show for, which is?
You are looking live, okay? And listen, it was gambling that promoted the phrase. It was, you know, my original director was Bob Fishman. And at a meeting, year 3 maybe, he said, Brent, my father and my father's friend like to bet over-unders. And they really want to know what the weather is in November. And I laughed. I said, we don't have enough time to do a weather report. But I said, what would you say about a live picture? I said, we've got all the inputs from the games coming into the studio. I said, I think it was Chicago we used it first week. And the weather was pretty foul. You know, you are looking live at Soldier Field in Chicago, where the Bears are preparing to play the Green Bay Packers, whatever. The weather forecast is not good. So that was about the extent of it.
Yeah.
Next week at the meeting, Fish at Brent, that was great. My father loved it, okay? They bet the under. There weren't many points scored that day. I said, well, okay. So then we devised a system that you could go from stadium to stadium. I always insisted, though. I said, Bob, listen, no tapes. I said, we're going to do this. Let's be honest with everybody that it was a live shot, and we did. If I would say, and I did several times say, you are looking at Cowboy Stadium, you know, something like it wasn't live. Wasn't live. I was pretty careful about that.
It's amazing to me because I think about sports now. Everything starts with a live shot like that, looking at the stadium, and almost every announcer says you are looking at.
I know.
Do you think about the things that all of you and that this show changed in our sports landscape and media landscape?
You know, Dana, during the time, no,
Right.
you're not thinking about it.
Right.
You're doing your job and you're showing up, and I had a lot of other things on my plate, other sports that I was covering at the time. Now that I reflect back on it, hardly a week goes by when I don't run into someone middle-aged or a little bit older who says, I grew up with you. You know, I take it as a compliment, and we talk and chat a bit. So that part of it is fun as we look back on it. But we were so involved in our jobs and doing it at the time, we didn't think about it then, not at all. I didn't think about it.
This may not be a fair question for you. You've done so much, Brent. Where does the NFL today rank in that or sit in that for you and the things that you have done?
Well, you have to put it number one, because I always tell people it gave me the first big chance on national TV. And let's face it, prior to that time, let's say 10 years before, so like this, somebody with the last name of Musburger would have changed their name.
Right, you're right, yes.
So, but I got this opportunity, made the most of it, and then I always knew that I also wanted to do some games. And
You've done a few since then.
Yeah, you know, the other thing that I wouldn't trade for the world, and people today kind of get specialized.
Yep.
And I was able to do it, and I loved it. I mean, I loved, that's probably the fondest thing is the variety. But when you go back to your question, I wouldn't have been able to do any of that without the NFL today. And I'm aware of that.
There's a 20-year-old out there right now going, what do you mean stuff wasn't live? What do you mean I had to wait to get a score? Do we appreciate what the NFL today did, considering, I don't even know if this is even a fair question, too. It just is remarkable to me about where we are. You were talking about watching games on your phone. Everything is so accessible. Back then it wasn't, and this show made it more accessible in a way.
In a way, because everybody suddenly decided, hey, we better go live.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, when we first started, there was no ESPN either, okay?
Right.
But during that period, if you look back in time historically, that was the time that the National Football League really took flight. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, you could argue that baseball was still number one, but the marriage between live football and TV, it was special. And the sport times out perfectly because you have a stoppage in plays which allows your production team to get replays in, okay? And that instant replay just changed everything about watching a football game. But it was just the whole combination of things.
What is it like for you now on Sundays?
Well, full admission, I bet games. And
Anyone who knows you knows that. What? I'm shocked to learn there's gambling going on in this establishment.
and honestly, this is why I tell everybody, be careful because you're not going to win.
Do you watch the NFL today?
I watch the shows.
Yeah.
No, I listen. I watch preseason football. I mean,
That's saying a lot.
I wouldn't miss it. I mean,
Yeah.
I look forward to it, and it's still the greatest show on TV. There's no question about it.